I'm visiting one of Britain's mystery buildings, one which hasn't changed much for 100 years or so, and which will, I hope, open our window into a distant world. Now, it's incredibly hard to find, screened by these trees, but there we are, over there. Gosh, excellent. But this secret setting is only one reason why Tyntesfield, this masterpiece of 19th century art and architecture, is so little known. No house represents its age better than Tyntesfield. Created in 1863, it's changed little since. Until recently, the existence of this sprawling mansion outside Bristol was virtually unknown. It was owned by 5 generations of the Gibbs family, who kept their Gothic masterpiece a secret. This private kingdom came to an end last year with the death of Lord Wraxall, the man who owned all this. Now, Lord Wraxall left no single heir, so it seemed that the house, its contents and the estate would all be sold off and this great Victorian treasure trove lost forever. But at the 11th hour, the National Trust raised the money to buy the house and its contents for the nation. Now, I'm here to see this lost world, this world of the Victorian country house, before restoration starts and before it changes forever. But Victorian country living doesn't come cheap. The house and half of the estate set the National Trust back by £25 million. To secure the deal, the Trust had to beat off other prospective buyers. Apparently even pop star Kylie Minogue toyed with the idea of becoming Lady of the Manor. Like a medieval cloister. Nothing's changed in here for years now. Oh, gosh. Beautiful Gothic detailing. And the furniture, objects, paintings, all here, like they haven't been moved for 100 years or so. The staircase hall is the heart of the house. Incredibly strong atmosphere in here. Again with the objects. Early stenciling. Incredible. And on the walls, family portraits, 19th and 20th century paintings. But the family's not here only in their portraits, as if they're here in their spirit, in their presence. It's as if they've just gone out for a walk around the grounds.
Very few people have ever been to this house and not felt it had a certain kind of magic about it.
Christmas is so absolutely wonderful, really, and the house is always full.
I think of Tyntesfield as a bit of a paradise lost, and you knew that this simply wasn't how your friends were living.
Tyntesfield is both a mansion packed with great treasures and a vital document of life in a great Victorian country house. Everything is still here, from old masters to family clutter to evidence of how generations of servants toiled. I can discover how Tyntesfield's owners lived, how they rose from a family of bankrupt merchants into an aristocratic dynasty of dazzling wealth, then slid back into obscurity and hard times. Tyntesfield was originally owned by William Gibbs, a brilliantly successful merchant, whose presence can still be felt in the house today. William was born in Madrid and worked there with his father in the family trading firm. When his father died, the business was in deep financial trouble, leaving William determined to pay off these debts. And this he did in great style, eventually becoming one of the richest men in Britain. William was devoted to his wife Matilda, a deeply religious woman, 27 years his junior. Together, they had 7 children. The house's 43 bedrooms must have been alive with the sound of family, friends, and servants. It's an image that's in strong contrast to the dusty and deserted state Tyntesfield was in last year, when William's great-grandson, Richard, the late Lord Wraxall, died. James Miller of Sotheby's was one of the few to visit Tyntesfield over the last 15 years. Even Miller, a professional antique dealer, didn't realise just what was hidden beneath the clutter of everyday life.
I was last in here, things were piled up. Where I'm standing was just arrangements of dried flowers and flower vases and junk underneath and papers everywhere, all over these desks.
Yeah. But below all this sort of debris of life was, I mean, here are these treasures.
Yeah, well, look at these. These are some of the things that came out of a cupboard. These are the miniatures by Ross, the Victoria's miniature painter.
Yeah.
And this one is William himself. And these would have stood on pieces of furniture, probably in the drawing room,
right,
and had just, over the years, slunk away, been put away, and they're here to be found. The thing was, this wasn't a house which was showing off its treasures. It was a house where the treasures had somehow become largely obscured.
Under layers and layers of debris, really.
Yeah, well, layers of life. That's the other thing, because
yeah,
even the debris is, of course, fascinating, because it tells you what was going on at that period of time. So there are these generation upon generation pouring things into here, and it's now beginning to be unpicked.
There's many more things. I mean,
yeah, should we go on to other things down the passage?
The house was originally much smaller when William bought it in 1843. 20 years later, he employed local architect John Norton to transform it. And transform it he did. In 3 years, Tyntesfield grew from a cosy Georgian home into a romantic medieval extravaganza. A bristling silhouette of towers, turrets and gargoyles. A monument to Victorian love affair with all things Gothic. The question is, how did William Gibbs get the money to pay for these alterations and vast additions to his house? The answer, incredibly, is bird droppings, which, to be more technical, is called guano. As a potent fertiliser, bird droppings were about to change the face of British agriculture. Guano mainly came from Peru, where mountains of it had collected on the coast, just waiting to be plundered. It was virtually unknown in Europe until the early 1840s, when William took a gamble and brought back shiploads of the stuff. Nicholas Gibbs is a distant relative of William. He's been researching the family's remarkable good fortune. So it's true to say then that the fortunes of the Gibbs family really have the basis in bird droppings, and that is the foundation.
It's the absolute foundation, yes.
Was guano sort of obvious sort of commodity in which to trade at the time, or was it a bit of a risk?
Well, it was well known that that nitrate was good fertiliser, but it was very much a speculative game. In fact, when it was telegraphed into England that it was coming, the company laid aside enormous sums of money, in fact, as insurance against any losses that they might incur later on.
So William actually thought, my goodness me, I made a terrible mistake.
In a sense he did, yes, but he was also thinking, now, if it works, it's going to work in a big way.
William won a European monopoly on all guano exports from Peru. Soon he was sending up to 400 ships a year across the Atlantic. The money just started to roll in. I wonder, Nicholas, if anyone in the city at the time felt something humorous about the Gibbses basing their fortune on this unlikely product.
Well, there was a humorous ditty that went round the city, which it was rumoured Tennyson coined, in fact.
Tennyson? God.
Which was, Mr. Gibbs made his dibs in foreign birds' turds.
Not on his best day of house, but it's rather amusing.
Very.
At the grand old age of 75, William was the quintessential Victorian gent, riding high on the financial benefits of the British Empire's power and prestige. But also, like the best of the great Victorians, William was a man of deep religious belief and social conscience. Nowadays, the very wealthy might treat themselves to a private swimming pool, a cinema, a golf course, but for the Gibbs, the greatest gift they could give themselves was a private chapel. And I believe it's through here, the door. Good Lord, this is spectacular by any standards. Must be about the biggest chapel added to a British country house in the 19th century. It's like a parish church. I had no idea it was quite as big as this. It does just show how important their Christian faith was to the Gibbs family. William was part of the Oxford movement, an attempt to introduce elements of Roman Catholic ritual into Anglican worship. The movement, centred in Oxford, encouraged the beautifying of churches, singing of hymns, and wearing of colourful vestments. At a time when Roman Catholics were viewed with deep suspicion, what became known as the High Church was seen as too close to Rome for comfort. The focus of the chapel is the high altar and this truly spectacular church plate used for celebrating Holy Communion. And here's the chalice, which really is quite incredible. Look at this. Made of silver and gold and studded with precious stones, rubies, emeralds. And can this be a diamond? Absolutely incredible. William believed that the High Church was the ideal marriage between Catholic and Anglican doctrine. To promote his beliefs, he built and restored 19 churches throughout the country, including the chapel at Keble College, Oxford, the epicentre of the Oxford movement. William and Matilda wanted their veneration of God to be reflected not only in the chapel, but in the house as a whole. They embraced the mid-Victorian belief that nature is sacred. To do this, they adorned the furniture, walls and vaults with images of plants and animals, some local, some not. This hall stand continues the decorative theme. Here we have a vine, it's pretty clear. Here, well, it's hops, I think. Charming. Over here are, well, more obvious, roses. Lovely roses, beautifully carved. And roses again up here. Incredible stuff, this deep carving, really is very high quality. And here, something slightly different, a heraldic looking, rather stylized beast. Absolutely charming. Now, over here, initials, MB, oh well, Matilda Blanche. So Matilda Blanche, William's wife, commissioned this. Hubert Gibbs is William's great-great-grandson. As a child, he spent his school holidays at Tyntesfield and quickly fell under its spell.
I can certainly recall being very susceptible and aware of the enormous beauty of Tyntesfield and its surrounding estate. The Gothic nature of the house, these rearing towers, this vertical chapel, the endless excrescences on the building which somehow defy the original form of the place. All these conjure something which is extreme and sublime, if you like. I remember certain moments of extreme joy. You might characterize them as sort of epiphanic experiences, wandering about the woods and really sort of connecting with the beauty of the surrounding landscape and seeing it reflected in the house. And I think, in a way, it may be that's what William Gibbs saw in Tyntesfield, and saw it as a reflection of personal belief.
Tyntesfield's interiors reflect more than just William's beliefs. They also tell us about the man. He was, after all, a merchant who grew up in Spain and traded in South America. The family motto isn't written in Latin, but in Spanish. En Dios me amparo y esperanzo. I place my hope in God. Whilst a lot of the paintings come from his country of birth, most notably the fiery St. Lawrence in the hallway that William believed to be by the great Spanish painter, Zurbarán. There's even the odd souvenir from Malaga. By building a mighty Gothic mansion, the Gibbses were, I suppose, implying they weren't only an eminent family, but also ancient and aristocratic. But of course, they weren't. They were merchants who made their money through trade, indeed through importing bird droppings. And they were, I suppose, one would say, nouveau riche, and therefore probably wouldn't have been received happily by the great ancient aristocratic families of the area. And these wonderful things, I think, display very clearly the nouveau riche character, the Gibbs' taste. This is a gold peacock, an amazing thing. Comes over from South America, where the Gibbses were making much of their money at the time. It's an incense burner. The top portion tips back, incense goes in there, and the smoke would have come out of the holes of this charming beast. Wonderful thing. But I must say, a faintly tasteless thing. But I suppose, of course, the thing is, the Gibbses had so much money, they didn't care what other people thought about them. When it came to spending money, William didn't do anything by halves. In this respect, the library best reflects his personality.
This is one of the amazing rooms he created. Staggering, isn't it?
The library.
The library, yeah. You know, a domestic library at a house. We're not in a college or anywhere. And this emerges in the 1860s. And it's the sort of epicenter of his life here.
Absolutely fantastic room. This is a room, I suppose, that tells us most about William. It's William's room, really.
Yeah, this was created for William.
So we can see here obviously his taste in furniture and decoration, the Gothic, and we can see his interest, his passions in the books, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, and each one is incredibly revealing, and all sorts of things survive in here.
So his books are fantastic, mostly his. Yeah.
Something like this, I mean, the elaboration, marvellous binding, coupled with the dust of ages, which is exactly what you hope to find here, and here it all is. And this is his book of prayers, morning prayers and evening prayers.
Actually,
look at the colour.
Wonderful.
Isn't it amazing?
It's this individually coloured pages, hand-coloured pages.
Each one is done hand-coloured and set like an illuminated manuscript.
God, how
have a look.
Yeah. Absolutely charming. Little pasted-in prints.
It's a lovely thing, isn't it? Oh.
And also, there are, of course, these amazing personal things surviving in here. Not just the books, but these scrapbooks. I mean, have you...
Yeah, well, typical of their age, they all kept them.
This is from the 1860s, presumably?
Yes, 1850s, 1860s.
Well, one here appears to be a sort of record of a tour through Europe. Wonderful.
Yes, you mustn't get the impression that they were here all the time either.
Yeah.
They lived in London and sped down here on the new Great Western quite regularly, sometimes just for a day to make sure the building was going all right, and sometimes... And then when the building really got stuck in London and here, they went to Pau in south of France for nearly a whole year. Oh, right. Family, everybody sets off, and every year they go and do one of these big tours. And it feeds. Anthony, growing up...
William could afford the best, so he hired the best. The family firm Crace, the leading decorators in 19th century Britain. Crace, a favourite with the royal family, designed much of the library, including this remarkable sofa and armchairs. James was initially unaware of the treasures that lay beneath the dust sheets.
You were suddenly aware of these fringing, and then from the fringing you got this amazing colour started to emerge. It's sort of gold, two tones of gold, and against this dark scarlety red. And, you know, this is one of the very few survivals of Crace's, not in the furniture, but the fabrics which he's most famous for, in this sort of condition. And you're standing
Carpet too, by
I'm afraid so. Well, I'm glad it is. It's rather good, isn't it? Yes. But amazing, it's sort of electrifying in terms of colour. This sort of pale, washed-out pink against lemons, against blues, and then the red background. Extraordinary.
Designed to go with this, of course. So that this
Yes, you get some sense of the sort of power of colour at that point, and how lively people liked it.
And of course, it's the atmosphere, I suppose, that all this evokes. This is the atmosphere that William would have known. This is one of comfort, of taste, his prized possessions around him, his best books, best subjects.
And sort of serious without being dour, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really friendly, happy, full of light room, and it's not...
But William wasn't quite so sure about the fireplace. He had commissioned a Gothic extravaganza of colour and detail, but was beginning to have his doubts.
He writes in his diary in 1864, he brings down a friend to see the house. It's almost finished.
Yes.
And he says on the way down, you know, it's marvellous, but I'm just slightly worried that I've gone over top on the fireplaces.
Well, too Gothic, too exotic? Or?
Too exotic, too Gothic. Well,
yeah.
you can see what he means.
Yeah.
And his friend says, you know, you're right, you have, but it's too late. Yes.
Being in this room, in the library, it's William's room, and I feel I'm really getting to know the man. He's created in this house, this room, in his 70s, you know. He dies in 1875. So it's really the work of an old man, but yet he's bold, he's brave. Indeed, he frightens himself at moments with his own sort of advanced taste. Suddenly loses his nerve over the fireplace. Fantastic little story, that. The atmosphere, all this adds up to create a strange and powerful and evocative world. A very attractive world. The library, of course, was the heart of the home. It was a convivial place. He organised theatricals in this room. You can feel the sort of fun and life still here, still lurking here. And so what one gets from this room about William, not just his taste and his interests, but the warmth of the man. A friendly and wonderful man, I think, really.